So, you want to be a real estate investor, but where do you start? How do you know what information and sources to trust? That's where I come in. I'm Jonny Cattani, and this is the Investor Relations Real Estate Podcast. Hey guys, real quick, before we start, go to investwithcattani.com and download my free ebook, Is Commercial Real Estate Recession Proof? Now to today's show. What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Investor Relations Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Jonny Cattani, and I'm joined today by Bob Couture. Bob is managing partner of CP Property Group, a realty and investment company with offices in Springfield, Massachusetts, and Hermosa Beach, California. He holds a Massachusetts real estate broker's license as CP Property Group and California real estate salesperson's license under Vista Sotheby's International Realty. Bob is a co-founder of the Western Mass Real Estate Investor Group. Additionally, he is a partner in Ironsides Property Group, a property management company in Springfield, Mass. As an investor himself, Bob has a personal portfolio of over 50 units and has helped clients achieve their real estate goals through apartment syndications, apartment purchases, and or multifamily, single-family properties. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John.
Absolutely. Glad to have you here. Kind of take us back to the beginning, though, before we jump into all the fun stuff. What were you doing before this, if anything, and what led you here?
Yeah. So thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be here. A little bit about me and how I got into real estate was, I was working in aerospace and defense. So I was on the corporate side. I was also a member of the National Guard. So I had a couple of deployments. And when I came back, I was a different person. The company was a different company. And I knew I needed to get out on my own and trying to figure out what that was. And my wife was always telling me, get into real estate, get into real estate. And I kept hearing, be a real estate agent. And that's not what I wanted to do. But as I started to kind of double click on that, what aspects of real estate. And growing up, I was in the construction side. My dad was a interior exterior painter and carpenter, and so I was around all of that. And so I decided I would get into house flipping, and then I started doing house flipping. And some houses didn't sell, so I ended up being an accidental landlord. And then that just started I like the mailbox money, and then that started leading from single family to small multis to apartments, and then got into syndications and then that's how I got to here.
Awesome. I love it. Pretty classic. A lot of people start with that single family and then, kind of realize, especially if you're trying to scale, the economies of scale make way more sense over here on the commercial side. One thing I'm curious about is you live in Hermosa Beach, which we talked about offline is one of my favorite places, beach volleyball player, but you do a lot of your business in Massachusetts, which is quite literally on the other side of the US. So how does that work out? How did that happen?
Great question. And I get that a lot too. Like why Springfield? Why across the country? I was born and raised in the Springfield area. My parents are still there. And so when I left aerospace and defense, and I kind of looked at the money that I had, it could go a lot further there. And then my dad was built-in mentor. He was semi-retired, and so he was able to help me kind of get this off the ground, look at property for me, help me on some of the properties, and it was great. So for me, it became, and I think that's the beauty of real estate, it became a lifestyle play. It became not only doing the day-to-day business, but I could craft my life around the business. And so now I go back about once a month to check on the property management company, check on the properties, and I get to see my family. And as they're getting older, that becomes more and more important to me. And so yeah, it became great. And then also too, for California investors, the interesting byproduct of it is this market is an appreciation market, where Springfield, Mass is a cash flow market. So that now is able to offer cash flow to California investors instead of appreciation. So it was a nice trade.
Awesome. I love that. And that's great that you can make that work. And of course, having that sort of organic boots on the ground when it's family is very nice. So we again chatted offline for a bit. You're a huge proponent of affordable housing, which is really starting to take over in conversation nationally. We obviously have a huge housing shortage as a whole, affordable housing even more so. Was out to dinner last night with a good friend of mine, and he was talking about how, as an investor, yeah, it's really great if you invest in Phoenix and you have, you're enjoying a nice 27% increase. But on the other side of that is a tenant who then has to, assume that large of an increase, and somewhere something has to give. And you mentioned that you're working with Massachusetts to, bring in some of your smaller properties as affordable housing. So kind of give us your take on all of that as a whole, and then we'll kind of get more in the weeds.
I think this is a fascinating topic, and one I kind of quip that affordable housing is new again. It's because it's like you said, it's getting a lot of attention. The Build Back Better has allocated, I think it could be $1 trillion. I'm not 100% sure on the numbers, but it was like something like $1 trillion. It was quite a substantial amount of money. And then what do you call it? Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, their charter for 2022 is 50% of the loans that they make need to be mission-driven affordable housing. And this kind of came it became crystal clear to me that this was going to be very, very important. One, because that drumbeat about, hey, it's hard to find affordable housing, families are struggling, individuals are struggling. But we bought, a partner and I bought a low-income housing tax credit building last year. And usually when I shop a building to the banks, it's very, business and looking at the numbers. Bankers were falling over themselves to get this deal because that was part of their charter. I mean, I haven't had that happen, and I don't remember when that's ever happened, like falling over. They're like, yeah, maybe we'll loan, these are our rates, yeah, you can take it somewhere else. But this was, they wanted the deal because this is what, that was the charter for Fannie Mae. And so it was great. And I'm seeing a lot more benefits in that. Before, and what I'm learning now too, as we're looking at our current portfolio, how do we convert these to low-income housing tax credit or affordable housing? How do we go about doing that? And because what we learned with the building that we bought is we're not receiving any of the tax credits. We purchased this, and those credits had expired. But the previous owner that did this got a great deal of money to revamp the building. So they end up with a great building for tenants in need, and then get to enjoy some of the tax credits, or if they're on the development side, developer fees and the like. So it is a complete win for the tenants, win for the owner, win for the developer, win for the state. The wins just keep going. But it was always this, it had to be at scale, it had to be big. Like anytime we were talking to consultants, it's like, wow, if you don't have 40 units, it's not going to really pencil. But now they're starting to do some programs where they're looking at getting with owner operators or smaller mom and pop that can also take advantage of that. And so that's become a very interesting world. It's almost its own vocabulary, the way that they're looking at this. These are underwritten. You go through we went through an interview process essentially with the Department of Housing and Community Development. So kind of a lot going on there. And something that's actually fascinating, it's a little bit of an aside, but I'm learning something of, there was one in California where they took a Class A building and converted it to affordable housing. And then essentially they came to the tenants and said, well, let us validate your income. And if you're 120% or less of median income, we're going to reduce your rent. So I've never heard of a landlord or an ownership group come in and say, hey, we just bought a Class A building and we're gonna lower your rent. That just seems counter, but they're receiving such benefits on the other side of it that they're able to do that. And to think that affordable housing now is not just, Class B building or workforce housing, that you're taking Class A product for affordable housing. Wonderful, wonderful thing to hear, and having the ability to do that. So, that we're continuing to look into our area, takes buildings that we have and try to put that on the affordable road.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, you touched on a lot of really great points there. One being obviously on the, the operation ownership side of the incentives that the government's giving. I believe all the way up to the federal level. I read an article yesterday, Biden administration really trying to hone in on this affordable housing. What is it that is keeping it so far behind in terms of, this, like, I know as a whole, the supply is behind, and that has a lot to do with development and in the past and all of those things, but specifically the affordable housing, why is it so far behind in such a big issue?
From what I'm learning, one is the red tape, and two, if for us to do it, we won't even be able to get in. We will be fighting to get into this round, and the round will happen in submissions are in November, and then they award or comment in like January or February. So that cycle is a long lead time, and often you get passed over on the early rounds, and two, it's a completely different language, so we have to use a consultant on it because they're taking a big risk on putting that money out to someone who may not understand how do you do it. And so I think that it's the red tape of it, the long lead time, and then material, and then trying to get it pencil right now when materials are skyrocketed and everyone's busy. And so even with our consultant on this he's jammed. Like, we're offering to do a lion's share of the work, the legwork, but there's not a lot of people out there. There's not a lot of people that understand it, and then for us to try to go do it, I thought, you know what, we're smart guys, we can go figure this out on our own. Even if we did, there would be no name recognition. So they're looking at this as, who's this new guy, and he's never done anything, taking it A to Z. So I think those are the contributing factors to it right now.
That's so fascinating because it's such an issue, right? So you'd think that they would reduce that red tape, so to speak, to make it's almost like, they're getting in their own way. It's like, hey, there's an affordable housing crisis, but we're making it very difficult for anyone to build or convert to affordable housing. You're like, I'm sorry, that doesn't really make sense. Of course, we're talking about politicians, so not really sure how much of what they say really makes sense anyway. But, it feels like a perfect storm, right? Like you said, with materials and everything. And then of course you've got, rents aren't going to be nearly what they would be if you were building a Class A that was not affordable housing. Aside from where you're at, are there any other markets you've seen that are, because I read an article that Biden administration is jumping in, they're targeting certain markets. Any other markets you've identified for this, or are you really just focused solely in Springfield?
Right now I'm focused in Springfield, and that's become a little bit of a for lack of a better term, a hindrance on it, because there's so much attention to the eastern part of the state. I mean, it's Boston or bust, and if you're not touching Boston or around there, the western part of the state and most eastern Massachusetts folks don't recognize the other side. So it takes a little bit of time for the money to flow, because also the rents, it makes it harder for it to pencil, because the rents are significantly less than what they are in Boston. So for me, I've been focused in the Springfield area. That's where we have our infrastructure. I would love to look at other markets, but to be quite frank, I'm still in the infancy of this and having to work with a consultant. So it's the backyard that I know and that I'll work with in the short term.
And so what is it that the consultant does? You mentioned there's a lot of lingo that you don't understand. So I guess what makes it that you need the consultant and their role in all of this?
The pro forma for the project and then how they look to use different pots of money and to bring that to, because I can do a pro forma on a project that's just a regular project or heavy value add, but when it comes to factoring in soft debt and hard debt and those pieces and making it all come together, that's where his value is. And it's interesting to listen to him. But even looking at the building that we just bought, we thought this is in really, really good shape. And he's looking at it and it's like, it really doesn't pass or not that it doesn't pass, but it would be eligible for a resyndication and getting more dollars to redo the property, which I thought that was fascinating. So those kind of ins and out, and then a lot of it is the name. His name is associated with projects that have gone cradle to grave, and then so that gives the confidence of the investors at the state level or federal to say, okay, yeah, we can do this as someone who's brought it full circle. I hope that'll be the case for us in coming years, that our name will be associated with that. But at least on the first one or first couple that use that expertise.
Interesting. That's very fascinating. I guess that makes sense, right? Because when you are, in this space, typically, I want to put this politely, the demographic can be slightly more challenging. So that makes sense, I guess, why, they want more established operators. But it's a catch-22, of course, because in order to get the experience, you got to have it in the portfolio already. So it's like, it's one of those interesting things. But what kind of stuck out about it to you and why you're jumping in on this?
Before I answer that, there was something that came to mind about when you made that great comment of government getting in its way. I have a conversation with the mass housing next week, and this is for smaller projects, and I hope that will be a more streamlined process and that allows someone like me to be able to do that for not have to wait a year, not have to have a huge project to make sure that it pencils out. So we'll see on that. So your question on what made this project stand out, a number of different reasons. One, it was a stone's throw away from our property management office. Two, the buildings were in great shape, and then it's a sticky tenancy. So once they're in, they're going to be there for a good long time. And the beautiful byproduct of this that we didn't, when we first underwrote it, we underwrote it with the current rents with just increases in inflation. What we came to find out is, and there was a property management company that had been put in place a year before because the current owner was falling out of compliance for the building. And so those guys came in to kind of save it, clean it up, and they hired a consultant on it. And what the consultant helped them with is, all right, you're not just looking at individuals that meet the under 60% of median income. You could also find that by putting a subsidized tenant in. So let's say, for example, if someone at 60% of median income, their rent could only be $700 a month. But if someone had a subsidy and their part of the rent was $700, but the subsidy could bring them to $14, well, one, they meet the criteria of being under the median income, and then two, you can get you're getting double the rent or significantly higher rent. So that, the property had penciled out regardless, just on the increases with current rent. But now that they were putting in subsidized tenants, it was really blowing that out of the water, and it's become remarkable. And so you're serving two communities there, and also serving yourself and your investors. So that was a great win, and it was a great it was a fascinating thing. And that consultant she was worth her weight in gold. Like the fact that she identified that, and she's also identifying you're supposed to recertify every year, but if tenants are staying, she's getting us to a point where once we're certified, we're only have to recertify new folks that come in, and not go through all the administrative, trying to chase someone down for pay stubs every year. That can be challenging. So at any rate, it was amazing to see that, and it's helped the bottom line considerably.
Wow, that's awesome. I didn't even realize that was a potential in that space in terms of having the subsidized tenants. So how do you find them? Is it the consultant who's doing all of this? Is there some sort of marketing? Is it the state who places them? Because they obviously know where the affordable housing is, or, what is that process like?
So on the subsidized tenants, they are a majority of them are coming to the property management company directly. They'll see an advertising for it. They'll ask, "Do you take Section 8?" and then they'll go through the interview process. And then similar with some will be on those that are under the median income may have an agency that'll reach out and seeing what properties are available. But for the most part, the responsibility is on the individual to seek out some of those properties.
Awesome. I love it. So I guess one question I have, like you mentioned before, it's hard to underwrite the grants and different things that come in order to, make these deals actually pencil. What are those grants? So what does that look like in terms of what the government is giving you and how you access it in that?
Yeah, that is stuff that I'm learning right now and hearing. So you hear it a lot as in soft debt and hard debt. So the soft debt is like a grant. So as long as the property continues to operate correctly, that grant won't have to be paid back. And then some of the other debt that will have, will be amortized and you're satisfying that. So with an affordable housing one, if you're re-syndicating and going out, I'm not going to have this completely right, but I think it's over the overarching. I'll give it as a simplistic and overarching way of how it operates. So you are not the owner of the tax credit anymore. Once you put the money into the building, that tax credit gets sold out to market to big corporations that need the tax credit. So then you've kind of given away your property. They're taking the advantage of the tax credit. The property has to continue to maintain and stay in compliance. And at the end of that 15-year period, you get the property back and with almost no debt. Now, the owner also could be involved in the development stage of that and receiving development fees. That's what makes it very attractive. I mean, the way that these programs are made is you make your equity on the development up front, and then the investor takes advantage of the tax credit.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. That's fascinating. What an interesting model. Okay. Now we've fully explained why you need the consultant. Yeah. That's a lot of zigzagging and things all over the place that just do not apply in sort of the normal operation of, I guess, of a syndication or of like apartments. So
it's like learning a foreign language. They have their own language of everything. It's very interesting.
Awesome. I love that. Well, as we kind of wind down here, I've got 5 questions that I ask all of my guests. It's the final 5. So we'll jump into those, but very much appreciate that insight. Like I said, don't talk too much about it, but certainly, it's starting to come to the forefront and something that, I think everyone needs to pay attention to. But we'll get into it here. What's the best advice you've gotten from a mentor?
Don't stop buying.
Nice. I love it. Kind of along that, is anything changing in this economic as we kind of are shifting in your guys' strategy at all, or still just
consider. So although I just said don't stop buying, it's the desire, the need, for more property from other investors is getting us to look at actually selling some and in anticipation of the ability to go out and buy some more maybe in the next year or two.
Absolutely. Yeah. As potential, I guess, distressed assets could come on the market, it's good to have that liquidity so you can jump on those, because those are going to go fast. What is it about your career that makes you feel like you're fulfilling your why?
I get to see my parents every month.
I love that. That's so awesome. Favorite non-real estate or investment related book?
The Four Agreements.
Nice. Great book. I haven't read it in so long. That needs to recirculate, I think. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh, perseverance.
Nice. That's a good one. I love that. I haven't heard that one yet.
We need it in this industry, right?
Yeah, that's a fact. Someone once answered with underwriting, which I thought was amazing. Which, of course, listen, some people have that gift and some don't. So awesome. Last one. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you and learn more if they want?
I still pick up my phone. So 310-922-5436, or you could always email me at bob@cp-property group.
Awesome. Bob, thank you so much for your time and all of your insight. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It was an honor to be here with you and your audience, Jonathan, and I hope we keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching today's episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. Listen, I know it's cliche and you hear it all the time, but please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you know when the next video is coming out. Even though this is technically a daily podcast, it's coming out the next day. We have a ton of content coming your way. So please like and subscribe. It helps a ton. Leave comments. Would love to know what you guys think. And we will see you on the next one. Thanks so much.